Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Nick Pedone, Chris McNeil, and we've got so much to chat about today, guys, especially the big moves around the AFC North. Daylight savings is upon us. Y'all get your sleep over the weekend or what?
I hate this, man. Why do we do this? And I hear every time that this comes around that we're going to be done moving the clocks. But then again, it comes around and we're not done moving the clocks. I thought we were supposed to pass some piece of legislation or something. And I put out there this week, I will vote for any politician of any political affiliation that promises to put an end to this madness.
But on the positive side, now my clock in my car is right for the next several months, and then it'll go back to not being right again. So during the summer, the clock in my car is dead on.
It did force me, to go to bed earlier for once.
What a weekend it was. Honestly, too, that happened during like the UFC 299. I had a big parlay going. Yeah. A bunch of my friends got together. We were throwing around money on Tipico like
how'd
crazy.
that parlay work out, by the way?
Yeah,
Here's the thing about me watching UFC. I am very much a casual. I don't really know what's going on. I just like watching the people get in there and start beating each other up.
And I trailed a casual in this case, too, because I trailed your bet.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I think I owe the Big Play offices lunch today. The bet did not hit. The parlay didn't hit. I actually did win a lot of bets. Sean O'Malley won the main event. Honestly, probably like the only guy that I really watch consistently. He is a lot of fun. He is definitely like the face of that sport right now. If you guys haven't checked him out, check him out. He is a lot of fun. So we have that going on. We've got this guy, Chris, on Twitter. Speaking of Tipico and, the bets with that said that he's putting out this thing that if he gets 100 likes on a tweet,
I saw
that he'll get a Darius Garland tattoo.
He's betting with his body.
So pretty much what he's saying in these tweets is like, if Garland scores 25 on the Cavs win on a night that he feels like putting out one of these tweets, again, I'm not really completely sure what's going on with this, that he's going to get the tattoo on his arm. He's been DMing me a bunch. I gave him the attention on Sunday night against the Nets.
I gave him his 90th like.
We got to make this happen, and we got to do it right here in studio.
Yeah, so here, I guess here's the thing. If Garland could score 25 and the Cavs could win, if both of those things can happen on the night that this guy says that he'll do it, we'll get him in here. We got to find a local tattooer and get this Darius Garland on this guy's face like live on the show.
So the call is out. Tattoo artists in the Cleveland area. If you can make it up to our studio here at Burke after Darius Garland goes off, then you're going to be our special guest along with the person who's going to be paying off the bet.
Speaking of UFC and stuff, have you been practicing any of your fighting?
I have been. I know I saw you have been too. Honestly, me and Gab both have been in the boxing gym a little bit recently. Yeah.
I didn't tell you guys this because I didn't know she'd be leading it, but Jessica Evil Eye.
Yeah, friend of Big Play.
Yeah, she was the one who led our self-defense class that I took at a title boxing gym in, I forget, like Middleburg Heights or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was cool.
So trained with an Olympian yesterday.
And then I also trained with an Olympian.
After that training with an Olympian.
Yeah, before the show, these guys were making me laugh, and I was like, stop, because all of my back muscles are so sore. Morel McCain, $1 Million Mo, she's projected to get gold at the 2024 Olympics coming up, and she is a beast, and she put us through a 2-hour clinic, me and my friend, and she's incredible, so we're pulling for her. We're definitely going to have her on the show.
Yeah, she'll be on the show for sure.
You don't want to catch these hands.
I'll say this: it'll get easier for you.
I hope so.
It will.
Like, what do you do? What do you do? Just go in there and hit a bag or what?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Just do work on the bag. I have a bag in my house.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my knuckles, I don't know. I feel like my hands were going to fall off after.
You're fighting. You've got scars on your face, man. You are street tough down there, Nick.
I know. Last week on all the shows, I had the Band-Aid on the cut above my eye. It was so embarrassing.
You should see the other guy.
Up a little bit. You should see the bag that did it to me. No, I'm just kidding. But guys, we got a crazy show today.
Yeah,
NFL free agency is here. Yeah. Jeudy is a Brown. Russell Wilson is a Steeler. We will get to all that and more when we return on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Don't go anywhere.
Good work, Nick, getting us out of there. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz. Let's get right into it, everybody. You mentioned it before the break. Jeudy, baby. Welcome to the land. The Browns traded a 5th and 6th round draft picks to Denver for Jeudy on Saturday. What are your guys' initial thoughts on this? He had 12 drops his rookie year and then 12 total drops the 3 seasons since. And obviously, he's a super talented guy. It sounds like Denver maybe wasn't the right environment for him. I know him and Amari are good buddies, both from South Florida. And Amari was a factor in him going to Alabama. So I think we have a better shot of getting the most out of him in our environment. What do you think?
Yeah, it's nice that the Browns are jumping right into this trade deadline and the beginning of the tampering period here, because you don't normally see that. You don't see the Browns kind of leading things, and that's what we see in this case with Jeudy. And the thing I like about this trade is we didn't give up a whole lot. We gave up a 5th and a 6th, which I know Andrew Berry likes his draft picks, but I like him as far as capital, and that's what we've done in this case. Bring in a guy who is, undervalued right now. He hasn't performed up to his expectations of being a first-round pick, and now, like you said, you put him with Amari Cooper. You allow Amari Cooper to mentor him a little bit and see if we can get him to be that number 2 receiver right now that we really need him to be. You pair him up there with Amari Cooper, with Elijah Moore. I think you've got a fairly decent wide receiver core, and you mix in a little Njoku. All of a sudden, we've got the semblance of a good passing game.
And we were talking that was the biggest thing that we wanted to see the Browns do this offseason was improve on that wide receiver position, and it was easy for them to do that. Parting ways with a 5th, 6th round pick, what is that really going to get for a team that's looking to contend right away, looking to be back in the playoffs this year and compete for much more than just that when you have your eyes set on an AFC championship game and a Super Bowl? I love that price for Jeudy was a 5th and a 6th round pick, because if you remember, this is a trade that the Browns were trying to make at this time last year, and the talking points were it was going to cost a 2nd round pick, maybe a 2nd round pick plus Wyatt Teller to get Jeudy in Cleveland, and there were people saying, hey, that might be worth looking into. The guy is still very early into his 20s, just 24 years old, has a promising future ahead of him. I really think as long as Deshaun Watson can get that chemistry and get that rhythm and timing rolling with Jeudy quickly, this is going to be a hell of a trade that we look back on for the Browns, very similar to that Amari Cooper trade. Like, how did AB get this done for just a 5th round pick?
And on the other side, we give up a couple of draft picks there. We haven't been real good about drafting wide receivers, right? I don't need to take you back to Anthony Schwartz and that whole saga to know that we haven't been the best at picking that position in the draft. I know this one, it happens to be very deep this year at wide receiver, but it's nice to have somebody on the roster here. And so that going into that draft, we can look more at depth and more of upside guys rather than filling an immediate need, which is what Andrew Berry went and got in this move.
Yeah, and everybody was saying too, like when you look at the free agent receivers that are available and that were rumored to the Browns, I mean, people were thinking before Mike Evans got that contract done with Tampa, like maybe that could be a huge splash. And then once that was done, maybe a little bit more realistically was Mike Williams, who was also on the wrong half of 30, coming off of some serious injuries. And it was like, geez, we got to start looking at the fountain of youth for these receivers. Like, you need to find some guys that are going to be here and be in their prime for a little bit instead of just constantly going for these old guys like Amari Cooper. This is the perfect blend of both worlds, where now Barry doesn't have to feel that pressure of drafting a receiver because, like you said, Chris, Anthony Schwartz, not that great. David Bell, haven't seen that much out of him. Cedric Tillman, did he even catch a ball last year? He was running a lot of wrong routes and causing a lot of interceptions late in the season. So drafting receivers, not Barry's strength. Trading for receivers, one of his best strengths. I'll take it.
Okay, do you feel that the wide receiver room is set then?
I still would like to see a little bit work done. Like, I don't think that you could just roll into the season with things status quo ever. Obviously, there will be guys, too, that they bring into camp. I'm curious to see what they do with kick return or punt return. Like, does Jakeem Grant make another celebrity appearance after his season has been cut short 2 years in a row before the season has even begun? Like, the dude blew out his Achilles, blew out his ACL.
All indications are that they're going to run it back with him. They see enough upside in him and enough potential there. And quite frankly, Nick, I mean, when you look at the punt return, kick return, how much do you emphasize that in the NFL? If you've got a project there, I don't mind having a project there.
So I'm curious to see what happens with that. And then I'm curious to see, too, what happens in the NFL draft. I think for free agency, Gab, they're done with receiver. That trade was probably what they'll do. Gabe Davis is going to get a crazy bag from somebody, and so are the rest of those guys. So I'm cool with the Jeudy trade, but I would still like to target one of those young receivers. That's what Pittsburgh does, and they hit on them. Just keep going back to that well and drafting receivers, because eventually you will find one.
How good should our Browns offense be this year, looking at it just now?
I think you'll be interested to see once you get all the pieces together, because obviously right now we have centered an offense around Nick Chubb, and we've seen the evolution now, I think, with this front office that we want to move away from the Nick Chubb-centered offense into more of a passing offense. And I think that's something when we had Stump Mitchell in here, who was the former running back coach, he shared with us that if you're not getting 6 yards a run, averaging 6 yards a run, you might as well be passing. And that's what their analytics say up there in Berea. So we see the moves that they've made so far. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Nick Chubb now going forward. Hopefully he's on this roster. Fan favorite, my favorite. Love Nick Chubb, but potentially they've got some question marks there as to how they move forward.
They got to figure out that money thing, man. That's the biggest thing. And we heard Andrew Berry say directly, which we never hear say. He gets up to these press conferences in the podium and he gives the media a runaround. He's one of the best in the business at saying absolutely nothing. But the one thing that he did said is Nick Chubb is going to be back on the Browns.
Unequivocally.
So, we'll have to see what happens. Nobody wanted to see that run against the Pittsburgh Steelers be his last snap in a Cleveland Browns uniform. They're going to have to make some magic work with that money. If they don't, things get a little bit awkward come the end of the week when you're looking to actually sign and agree to terms with these free agents and pay them that money. Because right now you might not have the cap space to do so. So they got to make some things shake there. Gab, to answer your question of how good the Browns can be offensively, to me it all depends on Deshaun Watson. And we know that the Browns are interested in a backup quarterback at some point, which is assuring. I think if Deshaun Watson plays well, this Browns offense is going to be awesome.
Speaking of quarterback, let's take one more break. We'll talk about Dangerous Wilson.
Oh, man.
Thanks for watching.
Big news.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show as we unpack the big news about Jeudy coming to the land. And we're going to shift gears a little bit, talk about the other moves around the AFC North. The biggest one is the fact that Russell Wilson going to the Steelers, everybody. What did you think of that?
In the dead of night, he goes to the Steelers. How about that move? Now, with him now in the yellow and black, where do you see him ranking against the other three starters in the AFC North? This has been a conversation all morning on Twitter and on social media. Where do you have him rank? Where does Russ rank against the other three?
I mean, he's got to be last, right?
I think so.
You look at the complete body of work of what he was able to do last year. I mean, I think he's last right now, and I really think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to open this thing as a camp battle. Russell Wilson
I was gonna say,
versus
do you think
Kenny
he's going to
Pickett.
go straight into the starter? He can't, right?
Here's the thing. It'll be a PR camp battle. They'll call it a camp battle. They're going to push Kenny Pickett. They're going to push Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin is one of the best in the business for a reason.
Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph will be thrown in there too. The preseason, that'll be all the chat in Yinzerland. It's going to be Russell Wilson. You don't add a guy like that, former Super Bowl champion, former MVP of the league, to make him the backup, especially now. I think the Steelers understand that the rest of the division has Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson within it, and they needed to upgrade. They needed to add a guy, and they added Russell Wilson. So I don't think that this is the end of Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. Maybe just a good mentor for him. Similar play style, because Kenny is pretty athletic and agile too, like a prime Russell Wilson was. But the thing that I like the most about this Russell Wilson trade to Pittsburgh as a Browns fan, this prolongs them from finding their Joe Burrow, from finding their Lamar Jackson, because Russell Wilson is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback right now. This version of Russell Wilson,
he's a bridge to nowhere.
Is exactly a bridge to maybe making the playoffs again. The Steelers were a playoff team last year. They could make the playoffs again this year, sure. But this is just prolonging the inevitable for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's a hurdle that they're now going to have to clear to find that future face of the franchise, because it's not Russell Wilson.
Well, you haven't talked about this a ton, but what do you think of Mason Rudolph? I don't know, just like from watching him and what he did at the end of last season, I'm afraid of him. Like, if he goes to another team in his future, I could see him being pretty good, actually. Is that a cold take?
Journeyman backup. I think he'll go somewhere, be a backup. Maybe he could be.
He has like that. He obviously has that scrappy fighter mentality, and I could just see him surprising us and being like really good somewhere.
Ceiling, Mitch Trubisky.
Really?
Which they've
Okay.
seen that show over there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. Career backup. I do think like if he was that good, Tomlin is a no nonsense type of guy. If he was that good and he was flashing in practice the same way that he flashed in those couple games without Pickett for the Steelers, they would have just let him go. you
Yeah,
know?
but practice doesn't mean anything compared to playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's no good.
All right. All right. Just wondered.
I tell you what, as a Browns fan, I love seeing Pittsburgh do this because I was kind of concerned that they might take the big swing for Justin Fields. To me, this really strikes at being a half measure. We've been down this road as Browns fans. You know, they've got a couple of quarterbacks. They're not sure what they've really got, so they bring in the veteran who happens
Maybe
to be
they were
available,
copying
right?
our Joe Flacco move, and they were like, maybe if it works.
Maybe
for them.
we can do that, right? So we've done this before, though. RG3,
We
Trent
have.
Dilfer, Jeff Garcia. When we didn't know what we had in that quarterback room, so we go out and get a veteran who's kind of proven themselves before. Obviously, Russell Wilson has had the Super Bowl, has had some success there, but on the back end, 35 years old, Nick, that's a pretty old quarterback for the NFL.
It is, but at the same time, Russell Wilson wasn't really the problem in Denver last year. So I do caution people a little bit
There were a lot of
about
problems in
taking
Denver.
taking their victory lap right now, because the one thing that you mentioned there was Trent Dilfer, RG3. The Browns are not to the same echelon as the Pittsburgh Steelers as an organization. We're making fun of them last year for starting Kenny Pickett, for starting Mason Rudolph, who I just said wasn't very good, and I don't think that he is. They still went 10-7 and made the playoffs in a very competitive AFC. You had Russell Wilson now, who had 26 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions on a bad Denver Broncos team, where, remind you, he was going up against the Raiders defense with Max Crosby, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. That was a no-joke Division II out there in the AFC West. So now bringing him to the AFC North, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. The Steelers are a great organization, and if there's anybody that could make this thing work, it's going to be them. It's going to be them. It's going to be them. The AFC North is a tough place to play football, and the Browns are going to have to be ready for these 2 games against Russell Wilson this year, because it's going to be no joke.
No joke. You know,
I wasn't happy to see that news. Maybe in the long term, but in the short term, as the Browns are trying to make the playoffs again, make it to a Super Bowl, this is no joke. I think Russell Wilson's an upgrade for them right now.
I'm also,
Not long term.
I'll stop with this Pittsburgh love, but I will say I'm a big Sierra fan. So this heightens my chances of ever getting to meet her because she's a little bit regionally closer.
She will be.
What do you think Russell Wilson's done for her career and
I feel
for
like
her
he's.
image?
I don't know. He might be bringing her down a little bit. He's out of his league with her.
Yeah, for sure, because she has an aura about her,
Oh,
and
she is
I think
spectacular.
Russell Wilson has no aura about him. Like, he is the corniest dude.
Yeah, if
maybe in
cringe
the
was a
league.
quarterback, it'd be Russell Wilson.
I really defended him for a long time, but over the years, he's gotten even cringy for me. Like,
What's
It's
crazy?
arguably tough to do.
I know it is because I'm pretty. You guys know I'm pretty corny, but
The AFC North quarterback situation, like, obviously very good and very talented in the sense that Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson,
Joe Flacco, soon to be.
All 4 of those guys have been top 5, top 10, definitely NFL quarterbacks within the last 5 years. But at the same time, look at those personalities. Joe Burrow in those goofy outfits and the glasses. He's a little bit of a cornball. Yeah. Lamar Jackson, kind of a swag quarterback. You know, we have seen him be a little bit goofy with the fake agent. Remember that whole thing when he hired the fake agent? Yeah. Deshaun Watson, we know his history here in Cleveland. We don't even have to talk about that. Now Mr. Unlimited. The Danger Witch sandwiches and everything else. It is a very unique cast of characters here in the AFC
Can't
North.
put much more personality than you've got at quarterback in the AFC North right now.
Which is so unorthodox. Like, remember, it used to just be like this blue-collar division of Joe Flacco, Big Ben, these big, rough and tough quarterbacks. Now it's just like kind of 4 clowns who are really good, but character-wise, 4 clowns.
I'm here for it. All right, we're going to do a little fill in the blank. We'll be back with another break, and we'll be back after this. Thanks.
Watch your sides.
Oh, man. Okay, welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. I'm just, speaking of corny and awkward, what we were just talking about, the quarterbacks of the AFC North, I decided to go to break and be like, thanks. Anyway, thanks for joining us again.
All our viewers say you're welcome.
We're going to get our little fill in the blank going here. Now that the Browns got another wide receiver, their biggest need heading into free agency and the draft is, fellas,
Defensive tackle, right? I mean, I'll be interested to see what we do at defensive end opposite Myles Garrett with Za'Darius Smith. But defensive tackle in the new Jim Schwartz regime, you really want to have defensive tackles who can get after the quarterback. So we're going to need somebody who can not only stabilize the interior there against the run, but also can create some havoc there in the backfield for this quarterback crew in the AFC North that we've already talked about. Not only are they a bunch of characters, but also a bunch of guys who can get the ball down the field. So we need to interrupt that as much as possible. That's what Jim Schwartz wants. So I want a defensive tackle, Nick.
And last year, everyone was talking about Joe Flacco, those 2 back-to-back pick sixes just being an absolute backbreaker in that playoff game. But the Browns defense did not show up in that game. And towards the end of the season as a whole, we were having the conversation of why couldn't the Browns defense travel? I think Jim Schwartz's defense was awesome last year, obviously ended up being rated one of the best in the league. Yeah. It all is so dependent on that defensive tackle position. I think they are going to leave no stone unturned. Obviously, the big-name guys are going to be out there, the Christian Wilkins or whatever, but that second tier of players isn't bad. DJ Reader from Cincinnati, that's a guy that the Bengals fans would love to have back. I'm told the Browns will be interested in him very heavily, as well as a couple others. Jonathan Greenard on that defensive line, and maybe even bringing back a couple of the main guys from that playoff run last year. I'd like to see Mo Hurst back in a Browns uniform, Shelby Harris back in a Browns uniform. We'll see how that all unfolds, but I think D-tackle is a big position in need, but I think it's going to be one that's addressed. I don't think we're going to be in here complaining about D-tackle like we have in years prior.
How about a backup quarterback? Joe Flacco re-signing with Cleveland would be
fun. Extend the party a little bit. Joe Flacco, his run last year really ignited the city. It'd be nice to see him back. I think you have to do it under a set of circumstances, though. We all know that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter for the Cleveland Browns going forward next year, but what you're not as sure about is who's going to be the backup there. Organizationally, they want it to be DTR, friend of show. I think you've got to have that understanding with Joe Flacco of, hey, you're coming in to be a mentor to DTR. We'll see how the season shakes out. 17-game season, we see it. Quarterbacks go down. You're going to need to tap that backup, and usually the backup to the backup. So I think he could be a great asset in that quarterback room, and also a nice lift for all the fans to have somebody who backs up a guy like Deshaun Watson, who we know going forward is going to be our franchise quarterback.
And I guess I'm going to say Joe Flacco re-signing with the Cleveland Browns would be a little bit awkward for that exact reason, because we know Deshaun Watson is going to be the starting quarterback. He's coming back from a very unique injury, and we haven't seen quarterbacks come back from this injury because it's uncommon. I think the 2 quarterbacks in the last decade are Mitch Trubisky, who had this injury with the Chicago Bears, and Andrew Luck, which unfortunately this was one of the injuries that sent him into retirement. So 2 very different quarterbacks, 2 different skill sets and styles of play from Deshaun Watson. I think it's going to take Deshaun a little bit of time to knock off that rust. And I know that's the last thing that
we're not doing this again, Nick.
Want to hear, but that's why it's going to make having Joe Flacco standing there on the sidelines that much more awkward and that much more uncomfortable, because there's going to be fans in the stands that already purchased that number 15 jersey. That was one of the hottest selling Christmas gifts in Cleveland last year.
Flacco,
that Joe Flacco jersey. So there's going to be people in Cleveland Browns Stadium already wearing the 15 jersey. And if Deshaun needs 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to not only fully get that shoulder in a place where he's comfortable pushing the football downfield, but also acclimating to another new offense with our new guy, Ken Dorsey, I think the chatter will get loud in this town like we've heard it get loud before, Chris. So be cautious, Cleveland Browns, if you bring Joe Flacco back, because things could get awkward quick, and I don't want to see that happen.
Awkward is an interesting word. I feel like it. What do you mean awkward? Wouldn't it just be
with the fans?
With the fans
calling for Joe Flacco as soon as Deshaun Watson has his first bad drive or whatever should happen. Everybody's gonna be calling for Flacco, and I get that. But at the end of the day,
but I don't
Deshaun Watson's got to show up. At some
Yeah.
point, he's got to show up. And if we're calling for Joe Flacco, the problem isn't Joe Flacco. The problem is Deshaun Watson at that point.
And I also think, too, that the Browns are in a stable enough spot now, different than where they were previously, because we've seen this happen in Cleveland before where, Brian Hoyer would throw an interception and the fans would start chanting for Johnny, and then Johnny would take a bad sack, and then the fans are chanting for Brian Hoyer. That was a mess because the head coach and the offensive coordinator at that time, Mike Pettin and Kyle Shanahan, allowed that to become a mess. I think Kevin Stefanski is a much more
and ownership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry are two much more stable leaders in the sense of Deshaun Watson is their guy. This is the dude that they gave a 5-year, $230 million contract. This is the guy that the reason they haven't had a first-round pick, which is so valuable to analytically driven front offices. They sacrificed everything and more for this guy, so they are going to give him the opportunity to be that regardless of what the fans might say. But I think having Flacco standing there on the sidelines with that headset on isn't going to sit right with people come week 6 and week 7 if this thing isn't looking the way that we want it to or expect it to.
I just don't see it being any more awkward than what transpired last season. But
Deshaun was off the table. He was off the table at that point, so you're not going back.
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting projections, everybody. Let's move on. I think, should we take one more break and then come back to fill in the blank, or should I keep going?
I think we're good to keep going.
All right. One free agent signing I'd love the Browns to make is...
I mean, you mentioned him earlier, Nick. I'd love to see Christian Wilkins come in, defensive tackle. We've already gone over how important that position is. He is the guy that's on the market right now who would move the needle. Unfortunately, we've seen a couple of signings here in the last week of up near $100 million for like 3 years for these defensive tackles. So he may be priced out of our range. Maybe Andrew Berry can get a little bit creative with him, but I would love to see him with the Browns next year on our defense.
I agree. I do think that's the white whale. Again, I'm not sleeping on that next tier, though. Jonathan Greenard, DJ Reader would be a hell of a consolation prize for the Cleveland Browns if they want to continue to look to upgrade that defensive line. We'll have to monitor, too, what happens with Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris, Mo Hurst, some of the vets that they had last year. That D-line is an important one. And also, too, one free agent that I'd love to see the Browns sign is Joe Flacco. Just because we learned last year how important.
Make it awkward.
No, not even that. I think that could happen on its own.
So you're for the awkwardness. Just say that you're okay with the awkwardness.
Embraces the awkwardness.
Because that's all I'm pointing on. I'm okay with it being awkward. I think Joe's a very healthy option for us.
Agreed. It's a necessary evil. Could we say it like that?
Sure.
Because last year we saw how important
it's like we
that
want
position
Deshaun
was.
to thrive, but if we've already seen that if he's out, we have a lovable, consistent guy who can take over, and we like that feeling.
And we saw how important it was last year. The Browns missed the playoffs last year without Joe Flacco. And DTR said on this program how valuable Joe Flacco was in developing him and teaching him how to be a backup quarterback in this league. I think Joe Flacco does a number of things for this Browns organization, but if Deshaun does get hurt again, I mean, I can't waste another year of Myles Garrett's prime.
I can't see Deshaun playing bad. I can't see Deshaun playing bad and not blaming it on an injury, and so it'll evade awkwardness. Is that a weird? I just feel like that if he's gonna play bad, then he's gonna say my shoulder hurts. Is what I think is gonna happen. And then then it can't get too awkward because it's like again he's kind of quote unquote, as Chris said, off the table.
Yeah,
I can't.
One last thought on Deshaun Watson here. His agent happens to be the same agent as Christian Wilkins. Is that going to be in the Browns' corner? Do you have some kind of conversation with Deshaun that, hey, when we're restructuring this time, which hopefully is on its way, we do that, we'll be able to bring in somebody defensively who's going to take some of the load off. We're going to be more successful. Do you think that's something that can work with the agent being the intermediary there?
Absolutely. And even Mary Kay Cabot, friend of show, was reported that in Cleveland.com is that phone call could be a kill two birds for one conversation type of phone call in the sense of, hey, let's restructure this money again, kick the can down the road there while also helping the Browns in the immediate right now get better. It'll be fun to see what happens there. I think the Browns add a running back at some point too, whether it be in this free agency, whether it be in the draft. I'm told that DeAndre Swift no longer an option for the Browns. He's heading to the Chicago Bears. So the Browns are going to have to look at some of their backup options. They do like Zach Moss, which I really like, and then maybe they draft a running back because Nick Chubb is not going to be ready for week 1. So they'll get something patched up there.
All right, gang. Shifting gears here a little bit. We did talk a little boxing earlier. Shout out to Mo McCain going to
Yeah.
the 2024 Olympics. Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul this summer, guys. I mean, we saw it come out on Twitter and Jake Paul telling his dad and how exciting this is. What do you think about I mean, Mike Tyson's going to be 58 by the time that he squares up with him. And I don't know. There was like video of him walking around with a cane at one point. What do you think of this matchup?
Him and his pigeons out there. I think this is the fun side of that we need for the summer, right? Have you looked at theaters and what movies are coming out this year? There's like nothing. I saw Dune 2 and that's it. You know, you got Dune 2, Kung Fu Panda 4, you've got a new Deadpool and then nothing else from theaters. So, hey, just plug in a 58-year-old Mike Tyson into the mix with Jake Paul. Have them mix it up. It's the old school celebrity boxing. I'm fine with it. I'm not looking for anything more than just some entertainment on a Saturday night on Netflix. Hopefully they don't make me pay more for this.
It's free.
There you go. It's free on Netflix, so I've already got it. So, yeah, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch this thing. I don't care about how competitive it is. I just want to see two guys beat the heck out of each other.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I'm embarrassingly excited for this just because I do think it will be that fun. And if we know anything about these two individuals, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, they know how to sell a fight. So the pre-build-up to this is going to be a ton of fun. They're going to be talking trash as if it was a real fight. But this is exactly like when Jake's brother Logan fought Floyd Mayweather. That was not really a real fight. You could tell when you were watching that live that those guys weren't really trying to hurt each other. I don't think Jake Paul is going to enter the ring and try to hurt Mike Tyson. I don't think Mike Tyson's going to enter the ring and try to really hurt Jake Paul. These guys are going to make an absolute ass load of money in this fight, and we're all going to have a lot of fun watching it.
I haven't kept tabs on Mike Tyson. Has he thrown a punch at all recently?
He fought Roy Jones Jr. in like a celebrity old man fight, and it was good. It was entertaining. You know, like it's a kind of similar thing. They weren't trying to kill each other, but it was entertaining to watch an old Mike Tyson hop into the ring against somebody that was equally old. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun having, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson happen. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm embarrassed, but it'll be fun.
Cool.
My dad is a big Mike Tyson fan, and I'll even admit I Googled flight prices from Cleveland to Dallas.
Really?
This
go see
checks
it. Jerry
out right
World.
around his birthday weekend to go into Jerry World because my dad growing up was a huge Mike Tyson fan.
Okay, and what are the flights?
I don't know. It's early to tell. Trying to leave Cleveland Hopkins Airport is very difficult. It's hard to find direct flights out. It's hard to find direct flights home.
It's hard to find your jacket.
Hard to find your
Fight correspondent Nick Pedone going down there. You're going to cover the fight for us.
Maybe. Who knows? Give me a credential, Netflix, and I'll be there for sure.
Heck yeah. Let's cover some baseball, Guardian spring training. When we get back, we're going to take one more short break. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Nick Pedone, Chris McNeil. Suit up your headphones, fellas. We are bringing in Mitch Longo. Yes. Is Mitch there, Bohm? Oh, okay, maybe his camera isn't working. Actually, is he still a Big Play employee?
Oh yeah.
We've still got him on our charts. He's around less, and we see him more on a remote level. But last year, Mitch, led us through spring training when Nick and I actually went with him. All his former playing buddies playing with the Guardians, and we got to play a little bit of golf and see what life was like out at spring training.
It's a fun life out there in Arizona, and obviously Mitch's old stomping grounds as a former member of the Cleveland Indians organization was Mitch Longo and spent a lot of training camps and spring trainings out there. So it was cool to see, some of the places that he used to go to, the place that he lived, for a really long time.
Tacos
Chihuas, which was just an absolute dynamite taco place that's out there in what is it? I guess technically Phoenix, Goodyear, Phoenix.
It is Phoenix, I believe.
Tacos Chihuahua is a great place. Do we got him on now, Bohm? Mitch Longo.
Welcome in. Good to see you, Mitch.
Hey, guys. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
got you.
So, Mitch, as we sit here on March, the 11th of March or so, we're into spring training now for a couple of weeks worth of games. What are the players going through? What are the veterans going through? And then what are the rookies going through as they approach this week and then the next couple of weeks until we get to opening day?
definitely. So right around now, guys are starting to ramp it up a little bit. A lot of the vets try to get there a little bit early, kind of around that pitchers and catchers time. And everyone kind of has their different goals. But from my point of view, coming in from minor league camp initially, and then getting into big league camp, just kind of looking for an opportunity to fill in for the big league guys who are on that main roster. So they might kind of slow that ramp up process and play a handful of innings at a time, and that's when you'll see your minor league guys with the high numbers and no last names on the back of the jerseys roll in. Try to take advantage of any opportunity they can. Get in front of the coaches, and you're not just playing for you're the Guardians, I guess, at that point. I mean, I know a bunch of other guys that have gotten opportunities through that and have made impacts with other ball clubs because there's multiple other scouts and there's always eyes watching you. So a whole mess of different things going on right now, but definitely for the guys who are on that main roster, they're just trying to see pitches on the offensive side, get their feet under them, try to avoid getting shin splints, breaking in cleats, breaking in their new gloves, trying to develop an approach, but just kind of easing into the season for sure.
So as a fan, how much should we take out of individual at-bats, what pitchers are doing right now, what we see defensively out of the team? Do you make a lot of that in spring training, or is it just kind of, hey, this is all part of the process for these guys? Don't worry about the numbers.
Yeah, I would definitely say the latter. No one's reading too high into it. Obviously, everyone wants to succeed. No one wants to go up there and strike out every time. But like I said, there's a different kind of process to it. They're trying to get their pitching. Pitchers are trying to establish the zone, see what's working, what's not, what they need to work on. As far as hitters, tracking pitches, trying to get as many at bats as they can. I know specifically when the Guardians would be on the road, some of the main guys would hang back and drop down to the lower fields and take as many at bats as they could. So if I was playing in a minor league game and I was hitting third, I might not get my first at bat until the fourth inning because you have your Jose Ramirez is leading off every single inning. And if they would go 1, 2, 3, they're going to lead off that very next inning again, which is great because they get, that's what they're there to do. That's what they're getting paid to do. So they're trying to expedite that process of making the baseball seem less like a grain of salt and more like a watermelon. But as a point of view, I wouldn't get too hung up in the successes of guys. I always tell myself not to get too hot too early. That really wasn't the case for me. But just trying to establish my zone at the plate, see pitches, and just kind of be in a good headspace going into the season. I wouldn't read too much into how guys are doing right now. But if they are seeing it well, that's great. Hopefully they can keep it going on heading into the opener.
What kind of coaching are these guys getting during the spring training? What is the role of like a Stephen Vogt, new manager coming in, and then kind of more of the position coaches, the hitting coaches? Who would you be dealing with, and who are the players dealing with, on a day in, day out basis down there?
For sure. So I'll kind of start it right when we get into the facility. They have breakfast for us. Try to get in the gym, get a lift in, stretch, take care of your body, get in the tubs, and then we'd break out into our individuals. Both offensively and defensively. So I was an outfielder. And so we would have our outfield coordinator work with us one individually. Everybody's all in one group, broken up into different fields, broken down by teams. So you'll have your major league guys, your AAA clubs, AA, all the way down. And then we would transfer into that segment into a team setting. So we would almost do cuts and relays, situational type play. Then we'd transition into the cages and then rotate onto on-field BP. Then have some lunch, and then from there we play a game. Which the beauty of Arizona is every team is relatively close. So the Reds, we would just kind of walk over to the Reds complex, and the furthest we'd have to go would be the Giants, were in Old Town, Scottsdale. But that was something that I really enjoyed, being able to experience both the Florida spring training and a Arizona spring training, as Florida differs a little bit. You still get that. The process is the same as far as the individual defenses are concerned and the team stuff, and you're still going to get your hitting, but the travel is a lot further. So you might not have that full amount of time to get all of that work in. Whereas Arizona, you're still going to get your full defensive, offensive individuals, team practices in, as well as a game. Whereas Florida, you might just show up, stretch, hop on a bus for a few hours and go out and play a game.
Sweet. Mitch, thank you so much for your insight. We got to keep rolling because we're running out of time on our show, but it's always really cool to get some of your experience and your insight from being at spring training. And we definitely got to get back there for some more tacos chihuas.
Yeah, man. Tacos chihuas.
No free ads. They have to have us in sometime. And,
No free ads. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks so much.
Mitch.
yeah, thanks, guys. Anytime.
And you can't tell because he was wearing the hoodie, but Mitch, I feel like very much so has continued all his exact same training regimen. This dude is jacked. Whenever he came up to help us put that stage together.
That's the second time that stage has come up today. So with that said, we are going to go to break. And when we return, big play, big bets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show, our weekly betting segment. This week and every week is brought to you by our friends at Tipico Sportsbook. Tipico is changing the way that you bet with their new Tipico Cashback Rewards program. What this is the more that you bet, the more that you're going to earn with Tipico. You got to download it to hear what we're talking about. When you do, use that promo code Cleveland100, all caps. You see it on your screen right now. You can scan that QR code, Cleveland100. When you bet $25 on Tipico, you're going to get $100 of bets on us. And I don't know if you guys have had the chance to mess with this yet, but
I've gotten money back
get
already.
money back on Tipico, just how a bank would work, how the Starbucks app works. Download Tipico now. Check out that cashback rewards program. You got to be 21 years or older to gamble in Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Guys, we'll go through some bets real quick this week as the Big Ten tournament is here. Chris, how far do our Buckeyes go?
I like the Buckeyes potentially winning the first game, and then I think they run into Illinois in the second round, and I think that's where it's going to end. I'm going to give a shout-out to my dad. Proud Illinois alumni. He's going to take down my Buckeyes. I was, of course, a Buckeye alumni, so I'm going to hand it to them, and I think Illinois has a shot to win the whole thing.
Okay.
Over Purdue. Purdue's the 1 seed. Illinois is the 2 seed. I like Illinois in this spot.
Wow, I like that you say Illinois instead of Illinois.
At least I don't say Illinois with the S at the end.
That's
Who do we
true.
think wins the Big Ten then, Chris? Is it Purdue? The favorite gets it done with Zach
That's what I'm
Edey?
saying. Illinois. I like Illinois to win the
Okay.
tournament. So they're going to take it down. They're going to take down Zach Edey. He's been there for like 50 years. I'm
Yeah.
sorry you're not going to win the tournament this year. You're going to do fine in the big dance, but in the Big Ten tournament, I like Illinois.
All right, cool. We will put those game boosts out on Tipico too. So when you're on that Tipico Sportsbook app, look out for our big play boosts where we're boosting these games every single week. Let's take a look at the MAC tournament, the Mid-American Conference, baby, right here in Cleveland, Ohio at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Is
MAC
Kent going to beat
tournament.
Toledo?
I don't think so, man. I think it's an early bow out for my Golden Flashes. I thought it was going to be Akron, but now they're starting to slip up too. I think I'll go with Toledo to win the whole thing. Give me the Rockets coming out of the MACtion here.
The number 1 seed there in Akron slipped to the 2 seed. They've got a tough matchup. Well, not really. They got my Miami Redhawks, my other alma mater there in the first round. I expect Akron to get it done there. And I'm with you. I'm going to go with Toledo to win the MAC tournament because in the MAC, you've got to win the tournament to get into the big one. So it means a little bit more in the MAC. So Toledo Rockets, you're going to be the rep.
How ironic, because my dad went to Toledo. So you got your dad, Illinois, and Toledo repping for the MACtion.
Yeah, look at that. And then we will wrap the show with some Cavs. They have games this week against the New Orleans Pelicans, against the Houston Rockets, the Indiana Pacers. Chris, the Cavs just got to get healthy for us to win some of these bets, right, man?
They got to get healthy, got to get straight with the lineups as these guys filter back in. Hopefully they get on the right track this week because over the weekend that was a little rough there
And
with
this
the
should
Nets.
be the week that Donovan Mitchell returns to the lineup for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Knock
That'll
on
be
wood.
a big boost for the Cavs, obviously offensively, but also a big boost for our bets. No pun intended. So look for Mitchell's return to the lineup. That will be a gigantic help for our Cavs. Make sure you guys download that Tipico Sportsbook app. We talk about it every week, but now is the best time with that cashback rewards program in place. No bonus bet crap. This is actual cash that you could take out and put into your bank.
Such a perk.
It's a lot of fun. We will see you guys next week on another episode of the Big Play Cleveland Show.